Daredevil Born Again episodes 1 and 2 are out. Overall, I would say it's off to an okay start. The whole thing really feels like a hollowed out caricature of the first 3 seasons of Daredevil.
Now you're just a pale imitation of the real thing.
Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio are both great still, but they're kind of the only thing carrying the show so far. And just the reputation of how good the first 3 seasons were. I don't think it's unfair to call the Netflix Daredevil the best live action Marvel content we've gotten. Certainly the best Marvel series we've gotten. Daredevil and Fisk are both still good. The tone and the whole atmosphere I think is appropriate. I like some of the cinematography, the music. They stayed pretty consistent with the original. All that stuff is good. But unfortunately, the dialogue feels very stilted. The characters feel like they're trying to imitate themselves. If you are an Arrested Development fan, this season 4, coincidentally, feels a lot like that season 4, where they got everyone back, but everything is just off. And it just feels a little bit weird, and it's just not what it was. We get a lot of contrivances. They've almost completely excised Matt's Catholicism from his character, which despite my wife being Catholic, I am not really a fan of the Catholic Church as an organization, but it's an important part of his character and they've almost completely gotten rid of it. They very quickly found an excuse to get rid of Foggy and Karen, which I would say is a bait and switch. I don't like to get too much into the meta stuff, but it does seem like Disney's still doing its quota pushing that they always do. And I suspect that the people that would usually call this out, like Nerdrotic or whoever, probably won't because they want to like the show. We get characters like Kirsten McDuffie replacing Karen, BB Urich replacing her uncle, who just kind of popped up out of nowhere and is the best journalist. Vanessa has cucked Fisk and was literally running his business better than he did. Just the type of typical shit you get from Disney where they try to slip all this in. And a lot of this is reflective of the poor choices that were made going into this show. I think the choice to have Daredevil give up being a vigilante 5 minutes in kind of fucks the whole plot and puts you in a position where you're not going to get too much action. And they literally just get rid of all the old characters right away so they can move on to what they want to do is how it feels. The one big fight scene that we get to start the show, it's neat that it's a one long shot type deal, or at least gives the appearance of one long shot, but they hide it in fog and smoke and it's hard to fucking see anything. It's really difficult to tell what's going on. Even the fight at the end of episode 2, while it has some brutality, again, it's a lot of cutting around, really difficult to know what's going on. And you know it's not the fault of the actors because Charlie Cox is great and they have all kinds of awesome fights in the first 3 seasons that are very easy to follow. Just to give a quick plot synopsis, Matt, Foggy, and Karen are out for drinks. Bullseye shoots Foggy. He dies. Matt goes into a depression, so Karen leaves him. He gives up being a vigilante because it's causing damage, even if it is doing some good for the city. Fisk has decided, after getting his ass kicked in season 3 of Daredevil, Echo, and Hawkeye, that he wants to be mayor and fix the city the right way and get Vanessa back. Meanwhile, there's a guy, White Tiger, Hector Ayala, who's replaced Daredevil as a vigilante in the year that he's taken off. He goes to help a guy getting beat up by corrupt cops, and accidentally one of the cops falls in front of a train. The corrupt cops want to kill him. Matt Murdock overhears him getting beaten up when they're trying to force a confession from him and decides to defend him. These corrupt cops want to attack the witness who can protect his client. He breaks his vow of not fighting to beat up these 2 corrupt cops. Fisk is trying to get Vanessa back and fix the city as mayor. Matt Murdock is dating a therapist because his coworker tricked him into a blind date. Her name is Heather Glenn. And honestly, that's the bulk of the plot. They don't really accomplish a lot in 2 episodes. The new characters that we get introduced to are kind of uninteresting. And like I said, the show relies on huge coincidences. Obviously, Murdock being at the prison when Hector Ayala happens to be getting beaten up by a cop, and he happens to be the guy who's the White Tiger, who just happened to be trying to help some guy not get beat up, and a cop accidentally fell into the train tracks right when a train was coming, apparently through the station and not stopping. Obviously, his forced date with his coworker's friend, who he happens to hit it off with, presumably after over a year of not dating or socializing, and she just happens to be Fisk and Vanessa's therapist. I mean, even having Daredevil try to kill Bullseye to start the show when season 3 ended with him restraining himself because he wanted to kill Fisk. That decision, along with the rest of them, just seems to me like they wanted Daredevil and the reputation of the series, but they really just want to tell their own story. They didn't want to continue it. They probably don't really care. They just wanted Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio, and they just threw out the baby with the bathwater for everything else. And we also get some stuff that just doesn't really quite make sense to me. Like when BB Urich is talking to Fisk, she just exposits a bunch of story information and then goes, one last question. But then she didn't ask a question to begin with. She literally just exposits the situation to him so that we know what it is. And then he does the same thing to her about how good of a journalist she is. It's just a really shit scene and lazy ass, crappy dialogue. And I feel like that kind of stuff is going to become more pronounced as the season goes on. And one last thing that I'll say before I wrap it up here, and this is kind of a nitpick, I don't care, is when Fisk is riding along on the highway and there's a giant hole in the road. First of all, my actual job is a construction engineer or geotechnical engineer. And the idea that a road that's crucial to traffic and infrastructure would just be going unfixed because of permits is just ridiculous. But also the idea of the mayor stepping in and be like, the permit's approved, fix the hole. Like, yeah, I know this show wants like that little dramatic moment. He's getting shit done, hurrah. But in real life, it doesn't fucking matter. I've worked with people who have talked about people get pissy like this and say, oh, I know the mayor of Charleston, which is where I live and work. And the response is, okay, you still need permits to get this work done. Or the work is under contract, so we're going to work during these hours. You're free to tell the mayor whatever you want. Like the mayor doesn't just have jurisdiction over the city like it's his house. There's a million people you have to go through for all these permits and bureaucracy and bullshit. And while it is frustrating, it is in place. And people will not fucking break that. They'll lose your job. You'll lose your license. If you're a registered engineer or geologist or whatever, you'll lose that shit quickly. You become liable for all kinds of shit if you do that. So that's more of just a pet peeve, nitpick type thing because of actual experience in the specific field. They actually do have some neat ideas in here. I like the idea of Fisk with his history becoming mayor, trying to fix shit. Daredevil trying to kill a guy during an emotional outburst because his friend was killed. Him trying to do things the right way through the law. The situation of a guy trying to protect someone from getting beat up by corrupt cops. And now he's being subjected to a kangaroo court. Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk both kind of threatening each other from their legal personas. All that stuff is a good idea, but the writing is not nearly good enough to keep the show interesting for how slow the pacing is at this point in the season. I mean, we got almost 2 hours of the show out of 9 episodes, and they didn't even really do a good job of Matt Murdock trying to quit being Daredevil and being forced to go back to it. I thought it would at least go like the Spider-Man 2 route, where his vigilante persona has cost him the people around him and he tries to give it up and he is more fulfilled in his personal life. But then he kind of struggles with the guilt of seeing people be victimized around him, knowing he's capable of helping and choosing not to. And if they were being a little bit more open with his Catholicism, like they were in the previous series, there's a lot there you can play with about justice from humans, justice from God, retribution, all that stuff that the show has delved into quite a bit the first 3 seasons. The most famous one and probably best example being the conversation he has with the Punisher on the roof, where the Punisher's saying that you need to kill the bad guys so they don't slip away. And Murdock is obviously arguing that it's not really our place to, and that we need to have faith in the justice system and that whole thing. And something that I think is really bad news for the show is that while the first couple episodes are okay, definitely things that I would call issues, but decent overall, is a lot of these Disney Plus shows, the first episode or 2 tends to be the best one, and then it usually gets worse as the show goes on. I guess we'll see. I mean, maybe I'm wrong and the show will stay at this level and at least be an okay continuation. Maybe it'll get even better. And once the pacing picks up a little bit, the story will really get going and find its groove. These new characters all won't be just annoying ass, bland exposition devices, and the show won't rely on a lot of massive coincidences. I'm going to leave it here for this one. If you've watched the first couple episodes, let me know what you think. I try to respond to the comments that aren't just insults. Like and subscribe and all that shit. Thanks. See ya.